Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine and The Shark. Today is our 101st episode, and we're discussing the 1933 movie, Son of Kong. So, let's get things started.
Monkey.
Yep.
Yep.
Bananas.
Math?
It's the shitty sequel no one asked for. So we're in the
Yeah, we
spirit of the
done
movie,
anyways.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, so of course, as you mentioned in the last episode, and pretty much as everyone knows, King Kong was a massive hit and probably was the first blockbuster movie and basically made all the money. And it was so successful that RKO demanded that a sequel be made as soon as possible. And because the idea of movie sequels in general were just so novel, that they wanted this done as soon as humanly possible. This came out, I believe, 10, 11 months after the original, and this is the sequel movie, Son of Kong. Go ahead, Shark. Shark?
Yeah, I was gonna say something that not many knew about.
Right, I see. All good. Math, go ahead.
Yeah, like Lev was saying, people had played the same character across multiple movies, and that was a common practice. The idea of continuing a story from one movie into a completely different movie was relatively new.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this probably may have been the first ever movie sequel that actually follows up from the original in terms of story and in terms of plotline. Go ahead, Angron.
It's the Ouija 2/Annabelle creation myth of early kaiju movies, Son of Kong. Yes, really. Yes, really.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, no.
It's not that bad.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Oh, man. Anyways.
But yeah, basically, again, considering that this movie was literally rushed out in a quarter of the time of the original, it is actually pretty well done. Most of the cast and the entire crew came back for the movie, with Max Steiner providing the score as well, and it's interesting in what it does in terms of the original and recontextualize some of it, and we'll get to some of that right now. Go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, I think something that really makes explicit how rushed this was is that this movie is short. Like, not even compared to the original movie, but comparing to movies in general, this is a 1 hour and 10-minute movie when the average is 1 hour and 10 minutes, 70 minutes when the average is 90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And even the original Kong was like an hour and was an hour and 40 minutes. So you can definitely tell that this had more of a rush production time. But as I was saying, it definitely holds up despite that. So the movie begins pretty interestingly with a slow zoom out of the King Kong Broadway show poster hanging in an apartment complex. And the apartment turns out to belong to Carl Denham, who's basically hiding from any sort of publicity. And one thing I give this movie a lot of credit for is how realistic it is, because after all of the damage that King Kong caused in the original to New York and all that, of course you basically have to go into hiding because everyone wants to sue him.
It's almost like his actions had consequences. Earth-shattering, high-cost consequences.
Yep. Well, that was something that you didn't get a lot of in movies back then. Some movie sequels would just literally hit the reset button for some of them. But anyway, go ahead, Matt.
I love that your idea of realism is American suing. And as things change, they stay amazingly the same.
Nice. But basically what happens is a man sees Denham hiding in the hallway and goes to ambush him, but Denham slams the door on the man. The landlady arrives and claims that the man was trying to pretend to be the gas man and orders him out. She then enters the room and apologizes to Denham, claiming that New York should care about other things rather than hunting him down. Denham tells the old landlady not to let anyone in, even if it's her own father. However, she proves to not be very good at this, as a woman knocks on the door and the landlady instantly lets her in, as the woman, of course, turns out to be one of those intrepid reporter types. Like, let's say it this way, I could very easily see her being the model for Lois Lane of Superman fame.
I mean, all she really needs is the dark hair, and she probably would be.
Yep. All right, go ahead, Matt.
One thing you're going to notice very quickly in this movie is that they are talking very fast compared to the first movie. And that's because the way that early talkies did comedies was they would speak really quickly and let the jokes just like punch real fast. Kind of like a lot of comedy that happens now, but this is how they did it in the early days.
Yeah, it definitely, again, this is a movie that definitely is of its time period in more ways than one, but like I said, it's really noticeable, especially from a filmmaking standpoint nowadays.
Yep.
So, what happens is the landlady attempts to force her out as the reporter approaches Denham. She claims that she'll be fired if she doesn't get a story, then claims that Denham is big news. And it's here we get another moment that is really fascinating for how it speaks to the times, is that Denham gives a sarcastic remark where he says, "What, after a month? That was enough time for New York to forget all about the World War," which, again, number one, it's fascinating they call it the World War because, of course, World War II didn't happen yet. And number two, it's just fascinating how, like, different news was back then compared to today's, like, relentless pound of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is the reporter says about Kong's rampage is still big news and how Denham is in trouble with all the people that Kong killed and injured, the property damages and insurance rates. Before, I do like how Denham cuts her off and he says, "You're telling me?" And again, I feel like the dialogue of this movie is really just as good as the original in a lot of parts.
Yeah.
Yep. But the landlady says that Denham hasn't left the apartment in over a week, and the reporter says that she wants the interview with Denham. And apparently what happens is Robert Armstrong actually liked this movie better than the original Kong because how much character development Denham got compared to the first one. And this is really shown in this case when the man gets up and he basically laments all the destructions and the fact that he shouldn't have brought Kong from the island in the first place.
Yeah, it's glad to see there's a ultimately greedy scumbag who actually regrets his decisions that ultimately led to near total annihilation.
Yep. And I do kind of wonder if this is where Spielberg kind of got the inspiration from The Lost World Jurassic Park with John Hammond basically being being remorseful for what he did for starring Jurassic Park and that. And it definitely could be an interesting development there.
That's for
But-
sure.
Yep. But what happens next is that the reporter basically still demands a story as Denham tells her to tell her readers that he's completely broke and literally everyone is suing him. He then throws the... Yep, sure.
Accurate.
Yep, definitely it. But he throws the reporter out of the apartment as the landlady notices that there's 3 people waiting for him, with Denham claiming that they're probably process servers in disguise. A man approaches the door, but it actually turns out to be Charlie, the Asian cook from the first movie, and there's actually 2 interesting things about him. Let's talk about more as the movie goes on, which is, number one, he is in a lot more of this movie compared to the first, where he can actually be called a main character, and number two, he is way more of a developed character here, enough to where I think that the directors, Cooper and Shostak, they basically saw how Charlie was kind of a stereotype in the first one, and they're like, okay, let's try and correct it, let's try and give him actually things to do and actual, character development, and I think they did a pretty good job on it,
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely made him a lot more of a prominent character to the point where he does something a little later that's definitely interesting, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yep, we definitely will. But what happens now, of course, is that Charlie gives Denham a note from Captain Englehorn, as Denham says that he'll be right there to the venture as soon as he can get out of the apartment. The landlady basically is going to try to help Denham sneak out of the apartment, and then we cut to the basement where an old peddler enters the building and approaches Denham. The peddler, whose name is Mickey, he gives Denham yet another paper that's another lawsuit against Denham. I do like how the lawsuit consists of shocked, anguish, and a sprained ankle to those on property.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, like everybody wants a piece of Denham after what happened with the first Kong, which again, realistic. He asks, he asks Mickey to help him get out of there, as Mickey offers to give him a ride on his wagon, and in a legitimately really funny moment, we then could have Denham basically wearing a wash tub on his head before entering Mickey's peddler wagon as they drive off. And, Mickey claims that since you came along, I've been doing great business because all the destruction Kong caused, as Denham laments that, I was almost a millionaire because of what happened with it. But then that's interesting is that Mickey is kind of a weird character because it's like they couldn't think of another way to get Denham out of the apartment. It's like they didn't want to just do like a crossfade of that, so let's just have this random old peddler show up that Denham somehow knows about and helps him get out of there.
I mean,
Go
he
ahead,
had to
Angron.
make he had to make some former friends to get out. Also, on the subject of things on heads, I'm surprised he didn't have a freaking cardboard box like Solid Snake.
If only he did.
Uh.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
It's Universal making fun of Disney by having a weird character called Mickey. Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Well, let's say it this way: Disney was not even their own studio yet, and Mickey Mouse was distributed by RKO, so it'd be them making fun of themselves in that case. Yep.
Nice.
But we then cut to the venture where we see Denim basically talking about Englehorn about the fates he in. I like the remark that Charlie gets where he says, "Next time you leave Big Monkey alone," and Denim's "Next time Charlie must think Kongs are plentiful," which is both a funny line and a cute little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yep.
Yep, we'll find out later on, of course. But sadly, the actual monster stuff doesn't happen 40 minutes into a 70-minute movie, so we got a little while to wait.
Yep.
But what happens is Englehorn says that he called Denim there to offer him a proposition. Before the captain could say what it is, Mickey arrives and tells Denim that he's going to be indicted. He suggests that Denim get out of town as quickly as possible before the grand jury gets him. Denim has to return to the captain's quarters and tells Englehorn about what happened, and it turns out that Englehorn is also in trouble because he's the guy who basically brought Kong to New York, and they're going to go after him as well.
Yeah, definitely a whole actions equals consequences sort of deal.
Yep. Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
If only the people that brought the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park 3 or 2 to the city faced the same consequences.
Well, all those guys were eaten, so they didn't have to.
Lucky.
Yep. Again, how did the T-Rex escape? But that's another movie for an older time. But what happens basically is the captain has an idea as they're going to sail away right that second as Englehorn still owns the ship, and they're going to sail away to the Dutch East Indies where they can trade and carry freight for work. The two of them shake on it as we cut to the ship sailing away with what I believe is footage taken from the first movie. It definitely kind of looks like it. And then we get a thing that definitely was common to the movies of the time, but now kind of went away, where we cut to a view of the ocean as we see various place names come up, implying that's where the Venture travels to. And it's a little thing, kind of like the Indiana Jones map montage, that it's such a thing of older cinema that you don't see nowadays, and it's a cute way of doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the Muppets method of traveling by map.
That is also true. If only the Muppets were in this one.
Yeah.
But we cut to Dekang, where Denim and Englehorn hope that'll be a good place to conduct business. Denim then asks how far it is from there to Skull Island, as Englehorn answers it precisely, because it turns out the captain has also been studying the map. Englehorn basically tells one of the sailors, Red Bosun, to break out the cargo, as Red remarks that won't take long. Englehorn mentions that he doesn't like the man, that he'd get rid of him if they weren't so short-handed. Another bit of foreshadowing, haha. We then cut to Dekang, where the pair are basically walking and discussing what they can do for work before Denim notices a poster for a show. Englehorn claims that it's most likely terrible and just wants to get something to eat before Denim convinces him to see it. And then we cut to something that is definitely padding, but it also has some fun moments because we get to see the first part of the performance, which is a bunch of monkeys basically playing instruments as one dances around, which consists of it hopping up and down, back and forth in a harem outfit. And they do this for a couple of minutes, too.
Yeah.
Hopefully
definitely
they didn't get them from Merrill's Curious Shop.
Oh, God, that definitely wouldn't work well if it was from there.
Honestly, honestly, the monkeys are kind of adorable here. Like, their performance is absolutely abysmal, and like, there's clearly a sound differentiation from the actual action going on, but it's honestly hilarious. Like, seeing a monkey playing the cymbals, play the thing all horribly. It's hilarious.
And there is a really funny part that I'll get to in a second, but Math, what would you like to say?
So yeah, this scene is definitely one of those, oh shoot, we're under an hour, padded out kind of scenes. I can kind of understand this one though, because this was the era where people didn't really see things that often. So to see something like this, because TVs weren't around, movies were still a lot rarer. This would have been a completely new experience for the people that were watching this. So I give it a pass for that.
Exactly. Like, it's padding, but it's padding that works in a way.
Again, 70-minute movie.
Yep, exactly. But one moment I do like is how Denim and Charlie are the only two people that actually applaud the monkey performance at the end, and Englehorn has a look on his face that's basically, what the fuck am I watching? And the way he has his face, it's just so hilarious.
Yeah, he's just like, the hell is
He
this?
looks so disgusted with it. It is honestly hilarious, and the rest of the audience is just so like deadpan, like confused about it too. That's what makes it so hilarious, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But as the
Also,
owner of the... Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Kind
Go
of
ahead.
funny how the people who have seen a giant gorilla are impressed by tiny monkeys.
That is also true. But, hey,
It's
King
movement.
Kong never played the cymbals or dressed in the harem outfit, so that's probably more impressive.
It's the little things, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But, as the owner of the show, Peterson, puts the monkeys back in the cage, he then announced La Belle Helene, whose real name is Hilda, and they only knew that because the English subtitles on the movie, because otherwise, they never say her name in the movie. Denim only calls her Kid, and no one else calls her by a name, so the only way to know is actually look at the subtitles. But basically, he talks about how popular she is and how she's performed in various locations for the crowned heads of Europe and that. Same thing, place the Wizard of Oz went to, haha. And then we get a musical number from her as she performs the song Runaway Blues that, again, it's padding and it definitely feels like padding, but I think they knew about it from the reaction from the audience because aside from Denim noting that she has personality and that she would be great in a musical number, none of the audience is liking it. Like, they all look completely disgusted. Except, and I love this moment, this is probably one of the funniest moments in the movie, it cuts to Charlie watching it, and he is just staring in unbridled joy. Like, it is just so hilarious. It just cuts to, like, from him staring on in, like, fascination and awe on that, and it cuts to the rest of the audience who's just staring like, what is this thing?
What
I think-
am I?
What are we looking at? But yeah, it's
Exactly.
not funny thinking because it's very likely that the actual audience at the cinema is gonna be like that because they came here for Giant Monkey the movie too, and they're getting circus movie.
Yeah, exactly. Man, again, like I said, I think that the directors deliberately knew about that because that's why they actually put that part in with the audience reaction. It's like telling them, yeah, we know it's stupid too, but we have to put it in for something. So, and again, I do like how once it ends, the only people who applaud her are Charlie and Denim, with Englehorn only joining in after Denim basically elbows him in the ribs to applaud.
Yeah, it's just like this whole scene, while it is just padding, is honestly entertaining padding and kind of ties into the story, all things considered. You'll see why in a moment, but yeah, it's honestly just hilarious seeing everyone just be like, huh? While there are just two there, just like, hey, it's pretty amazing, giving her like claps out of pity and out of generosity.
Exactly. But we also basically Hilda's actress is played by Helen Mack, who this woman had a fascinating career because she started in silent films as a child actress. She did vaudeville and Broadway, then became a predominant radio actress, and ended her career writing television scripts. So this woman had a hand in pretty much every single predominant media type of the time period.
Well, damn. Talk
It's
about
amazing.
jack of all trades.
Definitely. It's one of those things that's really amazing when you think about it. Like someone who could start out in silent films could end their career writing television scripts, you know?
Nice.
Yep. But I do like how Englehorn remarks, is that your idea of a good time after the show ends? And again, all the audience instantly leaves as soon as it's over. Like 9 times they just get out and like run out of the tent.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like I'm just
Yeah.
imagining the audience, like the performers, like turning around, talking with each other, like saying thanks, great job, and then they turn around and everyone's just like gone, no noise, like no trace except for a few like popcorn bags and whatnot, just gone.
Yeah, exactly. But what happens next basically is we cut to Hilda taking the outfit off of one of the monkeys as she asks if that man is coming tonight. Peterson claims that man is his friend, and then when she says, oh, he's not your friend, he says, well, he's a fellow white man, which okay, yeah, this is definitely of the times
Yep.
that way. But what happens basically is Hilda says that he's just one of Hilda basically says that the man is just someone Peterson can get drunk with, but Peterson, who turns out to be Hilda's father, basically just demands her to go to bed as it cut to Peterson drinking with them. Now, the other guy's name is Hellstrom, and basically they're sitting around getting hammered and that. Hellstrom claims that Peterson will never get out of decaying as he taunts him for his rotten show. Peterson retorts by basically saying that Hellstrom intentionally burned down his ship for the insurance money and claiming that you're now better than me. And the two of them get in basically a drunken fight in that. Hellstrom kills Peterson by breaking the liquor bottle over his head while also knocking down a torch, which causes the whole tent to go on fire.
Yeah. Now, this moment's interesting for me because, like, normally when I've seen bottles broken on people's head, it doesn't necessarily result in death in most cases. At most, he's, like, knocked out cold. So I'm watching this and I'm like, he's fine, right? Right?
Well, that didn't kill him, the smoke inhalation did.
Oh, definitely. That's fair.
But what happens is Hilda wakes up basically to see her father dead in the tent in flames. As Hellstrom tries to extinguish it before basically just leaving her to die, Hilda frees all the animals from their cages, then drags her father's body out of the tent and takes her clothes with her.
Good to know she has priorities.
Yep, she asks her father who did it, but the guy's already dead. And excuse me. To give this movie credit where credit is due, the shot of the tent burning is one of the best of the film, which, again, even considering how rushed this movie was, it's even more amazing. Like, just the cinematography on this looks really, really good.
Yep.
It's also interesting... Yep. It's also interesting how this movie has an actual human antagonist in it with Hellstrom, compared to the original, which really didn't have any. You could say Denim was, but...
he
wasn't doing it really out of malice in that, you know?
Mm-hmm. He just did it out of greed.
Yep. This feels more linear than the first one because of that, you know? Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Who is the real monster? The giant gorilla or the man?
Nice. Well, we'll get to see why in a little bit, but we cut to the next day where Hilda is trying to get all the monkeys out of a tree as Denim arrives. Denim tells her that she'll never catch him that way as Hilda asks, "Did you ever catch a monkey?" And I love Denim's reaction of, he laughs and he says, "Lady, you'll be surprised," which, good one right there. He says that the monkeys basically won't come down anymore now, and Layman said it's no use to even try. Denim recognizes her from the previous night and asks about what happened. He says about the tent fire and her father's death before Lay mentioned that he was part of a legitimate circus once upon a time, but he was fired for his drinking problem. She claims to have been part of a ballet, but was no good in it, and then started to work for her father in the show. Denim basically tells her to be more positive as she asks if he's in show business. Denim lies to her and says that he isn't and that he's in the shipping business. He asks if Hilda has any money on her, then tells her to keep her chin up, and we got to her walking back to the remains of the circus as Hellstrom arrives and offers condolences, but Hilda's smarter than that. She knows he killed her father and claims that she'll tell the magistrate all about what he did and what her father's last words to her were, even though he was already dead by the time he came out, but, you know. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Dainty Bell certainly just pulled one over on the Sly McSnide or whatever. Yeah, I made a Wuzzles reference on that, but it's been a while since I saw that episode, so...
All good. But we then cut to a bar as Hellstrom enters it while Denim and Englehorn lament their lack of work. Seeing Denim, Hellstrom goes over to their table and sits down. And it turns out that Hellstrom is the sailor that gave Carl Denham the map of Skull Island to begin with. And this might be the first time a sequel explains something that didn't really need to be explained. It's like in the first one, basically, all Denham says that, oh, this Norwegian sailor gave me the map of Skull Island, but now we actually get to see the sailor who did it, and we learn more about his backstory, which definitely is an interesting way to do it, considering how early this was in film. I'll give him that much.
Again,
go ahead,
they had to pass this movie for extra time.
Yep, definitely. Hellstrom says that he heard all about King Kong and that, and mentions that he has nothing. I do like this line. This line actually might be one of the best in the movie, where Denim basically offers to give Hellstrom half. He says, "Would you like half of what I got?" And Hellstrom says, "Yes. You can have 11 lawsuits and an indictment by a grand jury." Which, again, like I say, the writing on this movie definitely is way better than it had any right to be.
I'll bet.
But Hellstrom basically asks for passage on their ship as Denim wonders what happened to Hellstrom's. Hellstrom says that he lost and that everybody is down on him. He mentions that he cannot be in Dutch jurisdiction, as Englehorn notes that most of the Indian Ocean is owned by the Dutch and that they can't help him, which was true when this was made. Basically, where they are in this movie is basically what would become Indonesia.
Convenient.
Yep. But Hellstrom then asks if Denim ever got the treasure from Skull Island. Denim claims he never heard of it, as Hellstrom says he didn't tell him that. He only found out from the dying Skull Island native who told him about it in the first place. Denim asks where the treasure comes from, as Hellstrom claims that the natives found it and buried it somewhere. Denim basically then instantly vows that they're going to go back to Skull Island to find the treasure. Unfortunately, we do not get to see them hunting for the Flying Dutchman's treasure, because they're in Dutch territory.
Probably plastic, anyways.
Yep.
Plastic.
Hey, but it's based on
they
a
don't have
real
way
treasure
to
chest.
go.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. They don't have a way to go west.
No, if only they had Weast. Yeah. But we then cut to Denim going to Hilda and saying that he wanted to see her before he leaves. He tries to give her money, but she begs to go along with Denim, but he says he can't help her. She claims that she won't be in any trouble, but Denim claims he can't help no matter what. We then get to the Denim sailing away as Englehorn and Denim note that Hellstrom is getting very personal with the crew. He notes that Denim was very anxious to get out of Dekang and is afraid about what they'll find on Skull Island. Hellstrom is basically telling one of the sailors, Red, about all of the deaths that happened on the first trip to Skull Island, as well as how Denim and the skipper certainly made it out all right. Hellstrom basically is buttering up the sailor, telling him how he certainly wouldn't harm his crew, before Charlie comes out and whispers something to the sailor. They all talk amongst themselves and they found something, and gee, I wonder what that could be. We cut to Denim basically talking to Englehorn about Hellstrom and the crew. All of the sailors arrive as Denim basically gives a weird remark. He says, "We must be in Russia. Here comes the Committee of the Workers."
Oh, God.
Yeah, and there's more of that later on, which we'll see in a couple minutes, but Charlie talks to them and he tells them they found something below decks, and it turns out to be Hilda who stowed away in the Venture. Denim is really upset about her being on the ship before realizing that they can't bring her back out now because they're in the middle of the ocean. Hellstrom arrives and the two basically notice each other and glare, with Hellstrom demanding to know how she got on board. I do like Denim's remark as, come on, we're all one big happy family here. But it's even more ironic when you know the relationship between the two.
Oh, gosh.
Yep. Go ahead, Matt.
I do like that if you do watch one film to the other, you can see that Denim is still being Denim. He was kind of snarky in the first film. He just didn't really get that much opportunity to because it was a bit more serious. And at his core, he is a guy. When he picked up Fay Ray, it was because it wasn't just that he was looking for a lead actress. Like, he actually was trying to help her out and be nice. And this follows through into this movie. So I can see why the actor liked this movie better than the original, because he got to be more of the character that they originally had him be.
Exactly. You know,
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, you definitely can see that, especially, again, it really connects to the first one, and I think probably the short time between the first and the second was for its benefit in a way, because that meant that they didn't have to wait too long. It was like, oh, can we get this actor back? Can we get that actor back? They knew what they wanted to do, and they could get everybody back, so that's why it feels a lot more cohesive compared to, like, other movie sequels out there. But we then cut to at night, where Denim is threatening Hilda to say nothing about what happened with her father before Denim arrives, telling Hellstrom that the captain wants to speak with him. Denim tells Hilda that she has to behave while on the ship, even to Hellstrom, but then he remarks that he can't stay mad at her when she asks if she's mad at him. The pair basically look out into sea at a really neat-looking shot. We then cut to Skull Island, where, again, this is why it's good that they got Max Steiner back, because he reuses the jungle drum score from the original, where we see two natives of Skull Island watch the Venture slowly approach. We then cut to the next day, where a sailor basically tells them that they're at Skull Island, as Denham walks out of his cabin, we see the rest of the sailors are all holding Englehorn at gunpoint. Oh, go ahead, Math.
Actually, it's Skull Mountain. It wasn't referred to as Skull Island until later.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it? Some kind of a magic xylophone or something? Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
But yeah, what happens basically is that as Denham walks out of his cabin, he sees all the sailors are holding Englehorn at gunpoint. It turns out they're all mutinying against Englehorn, and they demand for him and Denham to get into the lifeboat. Hellstrom is also part of the mutiny, as the sailors don't want to go to Skull Island to rebel against Englehorn. And here's the thing that I just mentioned about earlier with the whole workers' committee thing coming up, because the main sailor in charge of the rebellion is literally named Red, and he spouts out some Marxist talking points about, basically about, workers unite and stuff like that, and things like, you think you can boss everybody around and things like that, which obviously he learned from SpongeBob and Squidward going on strike.
Oh boy.
Yep.
That one didn't age quite so well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Angron.
I already did the thing.
Oh, good. Shark?
So Red, huh? I'm Russian. Is he the heavy weapons guy? Is he mad he didn't get enough sandwiches for the team?
He must be. He must have been.
It cost $400,000 to fire it for 12 seconds.
Yeah. Go ahead, Math.
Yeah, I wonder what could have been happening in the 1930s that you would want to reference Russians and the color red. Total mystery, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely seems confusing there. But Denham is more concerned about what will happen to Hilda than anybody else. Hellstrom says that since she snuck aboard the boat, she can leave with them. Hilda says she does not care, as she knows that Hellstrom killed her father. Denham tries to get the sailors to listen to him, but they're basically done with him. They force Denham and Englehorn to get into the lifeboat, and Hilda's in there with them too. And Charlie actually joins the lifeboat. He says that he's afraid of the rebels, and that basically this actually makes him more of a character now because of it. Denham asks if there's any guns, but Red says that they don't need any, as they have food and water, and Hellstrom remarks, "A smart man like you don't need a gun," which will come back later, haha. We do get another moment from Charlie that actually is pretty, again, shows a lot more of his character development, because he hints to Denham that he actually hid some guns in the lifeboat in case this would happen.
Oh boy.
Yep. And just to complete the trifecta of basically this anti-communist hysteria, Red calls them bourgeoisie as they all sail off. But Hellstrom proves to be a really big idiot as he attempts to take command of the ship as captain, but of course you literally just led them into a communist revolution, buddy. They don't want any more captains. And they basically literally throw him overboard as well.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that union thing's going really great for you guys so far.
Yep.
Wonder how you're going to manage out in the open ocean.
Well, we don't get to see the Venture anymore, so don't know about that. Shark, go ahead.
Well, it's not the captain's ship. It's our ship.
Yeah.
I am
Nice.
the captain now.
We are the captain now.
Oh god. Oh god.
Had to
Now I'm
do it,
reminded
had
of
to
that
do it.
one. I'm reminded of that one episode of Flapjack where it's like everyone's the captain despite not passing a captain's exam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything,
nice.
Captain? Oh no, Captain.
Yep. But basically, the lifeboat rescues Hellstrom, as Denham remarks, "Do we have to save him?" in a pretty good joke. We then cut to the island, the lifeboat making it to the beach of Skull Island, which, this is something that, going on a tiny little bit of a tangent here, because RKO also made one of the most famous and most iconic movies ever made, Citizen Kane. Now, in that movie, there's a part where Charles Foster Kane and his wife go on honeymoon, but they reused footage of the Skull Island beach, which means that in Citizen Kane, they go on honeymoon on an island that has pterodons flying in the background.
Among other dinosaurs.
Yeah, but no, in this shot of basically Kane and his wife on the beach, you can actually see in the background the pterodactyls flying back and forth.
God.
Yeah, they didn't edit it out.
Wow.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. It's one of those moments that if you know about it, you will always find it hysterical.
I'll bet.
Yep. But the group get out of the lifeboat as a Skull Island native throws a spear at their boat. And it's here where, again, I give this movie credit for what they did with the natives because they are pissed but they are rightfully so because, as the chief tells them, their village is destroyed, their people have been killed, and it's all their fault because they're the ones who let Kong inside their village.
I mean, they didn't intend to, but hey, stuff happens like that,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But it is, but you do understand their side because these guys basically lost everything because of basically Denim and the White Man, basically. We got Noble Johnson reprising his role as the Skull Island chief from the first one, and I think some of the natives are the same, but we can't really tell because they don't really hang on them too long. Oh, go ahead, Math.
My favorite bit of that is when they get on the island and start hearing the drums. Denim saying in his snarky way, "Oh, I bet they're so excited they're going to throw us a party." Then the spear flings right at his feet, or maybe not.
Yeah,
right.
like,
Sorry, I forgot about
try,
that. But
buddy. You're not getting off scot-free, or at least not without a few spears up the
yep.
gut.
But that doesn't happen. We do not get that sort of thing in this because Denim tells Englehorn to try and tell the natives that they're still friends, but the natives basically don't want to hear that as they approach them menacingly before the group sail away from the Skull Island natives in their lifeboat. We cut to them sailing into a rocky terrain as they land, with Hellstrom noting that there's no way out from where they went to. Denim begins to walk up a set of stone steps as Hilda follows him. Hellstrom basically apologizes for the mutiny, but Englehorn says that they're all in this together. I do like the moment where Hellstrom tries to take Englehorn's gun. The captain pulls it away, basically throwing back the "smart guy like you don't need a gun" as Charlie laughs at him. Yep. But we then cut to finally, 40 minutes into this movie, we finally cut to the things people actually want to see in Son of Kong. The Son of Kong. Because Denim and Hilda see another giant gorilla stuck in the quicksand. This gorilla is about, I think they say that he's about like half the size of Kong, and he's actually supposed to be an albino. You can see it in like the movie posters, but in a lot of the shots you can't really see that. So it makes me wonder if O'Brien didn't have time to make his fur fully white or something, but it is in other shots, which is weird. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
He's 12 feet tall, and Kong originally was somewhere in the ballpark of like 3 or 4 stories tall. And the time that it took for Son of Kong to show up was roughly the same as it took for Kong himself to show up. The key difference being you still have an hour of film left in Kong. You have 25 minutes left in Son of Kong.
Exactly. That's probably the biggest downfall of the movie, sadly, is that it takes too long to get to the part that people actually want to see. But it's not a bad movie as a whole. And I will give this movie credit. O'Brien still did really fantastic work on him and the other dinosaurs and monsters, despite having such a really rushed schedule. And, of course, this dinosaur is the titular Son of Kong. And, fun fact, this is one of those, Frankenstein's not the monster, he's the doctor. But to be one of those kind of guys, he's not actually called Son of Kong in the entire movie. Denim always calls him Little Kong, and in the script he was called Kiko.
Yeah.
Yep, that was his name.
Does he know El Chavo?
If only he did. But yeah, Little Kong, as he's called, he has such great facial expressions. We'll get to more of them in a little while, but he is so expressive. And I think what it is because they didn't have the full-scale model close-up like the original Kong did, O'Brien basically had to do all of the facial expressions of a Little Kong, and you can see so much, basically, emotion from it, which is really amazing, especially, again, considering how rushed this was.
Yeah, also, thing to note, on top of his voice basically being, on top of it being an ape, he just basically goes like, oh. So, basically, I don't exactly know what to compare that to, but yeah, that definitely is a little jarring. Also, and then there's Kiko. He's dead.
Yeah, well,
we'll get
sadly,
to that later.
Yep, he does. Sadly, he does not live to make it. Spoiler alert for a 90-year-old movie, but there you go. Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, I think something that, as you were mentioning, with the expressiveness and more emotion in his face, because something you'll notice kind of quick is that the puppet quality is not on the same level than the original. I mean, it's still good, but you can tell they didn't have the same budget, so their puppet is a little more simple. And because of that, let's just say that he looks a bit more cartoony in the face, but that actually helps him to be more expressive. So it kind of was a good thing in this case.
Yep, exactly. Go ahead, Math.
Yeah, I was actually about to say very similar. Because this is more of a comedy than a serious movie, they had him be a bit more goofy, and there are some scenes that are going to come up later on where that is really noticeable. I think it's more of an issue of time rather than budget, because the animation and the stop motion claymation still looks good, but it has this sort of like dumpy kind of look to it, if you understand what I mean. So it's not up to the same high quality standard as the previous movie, but you can still tell it's the same guy, and he is giving it his all and doing his damnedest with the limited time he has to make these things look good.
Yep, exactly. And again, he definitely also resembles another famous Kong, but we'll get to that in a moment later on. Basically, what happens is Hilda basically feels sorry for little Kong as Dem tries to save him by using a log to pull him out of the quicksand. The bear gets the log down as little Kong pulls himself off. He looks at his hands to see if he's alright, then he just walks off. The others arrive as Dem warns them about the quicksand, but not about little Kong, of course. But we do get then Denim basically telling Englehorn and Englehorn alone about little Kong and about how he saved him from the quicksand. He says that he did because he still feels sorry about what happened with King Kong and he wants to make amends for it. And one thing that's interesting is Denim keeps referring to basically little Kong as if he's Kong's son, but we actually don't know that in the movie. He could just be another random giant gorilla on the island.
Or basically a midget of a gorilla. Who knows?
That too, you know. We don't know if he has any actual connection to King Kong despite just living on Skull Island. But what happens is the group then notice a large door carved in the side of the mountain as Charlie suggests that it's some kind of a temple and that big devil living there, which, okay, yeah, thank you 30s for that.
Oh, that one didn't age quite so well.
That too. Denim notes that the treasure still may be hidden in there and that they'll all meet after sundown. Englehorn, Hellstrom, and Charlie all leave while Denim stays behind to try and see what the temple looks like on the inside. He bumps into Hilda and tells her to stay, but then allows her basically to follow him as long as she doesn't talk, which I guess Denim's been taking lessons from Driscoll from the original, haha.
Yep.
We then cut to Englehorn, Charlie, and Hellstrom walking through the jungle. Hellstrom remarks that he thought tropical jungles would have fruit in them, but Englehorn basically is about to deny that. But before he can answer, an enraged Triceratops attacks the three of them. Now what's interesting here is what was going to be here. Instead of a Triceratops, what would have happened is that the three of them would have had to run from a stampede of Brontosauruses, but this is never filmed due to time constraints. This was later used in the Peter Jackson version, where it's probably the worst looking scene of the film, if I'm going to be honest. The Brontosaurus stampede, you can tell that part. I think it's a little amateurish in that one, and I don't know if O'Brien would have done better, especially with the rush schedule, but would have been interesting. Yeah, that's right. They didn't get the Wonderflower they needed for the stampede. Exactly.
Nice.
Yep. Englehorn tries to shoot at the Triceratops, but it puts its rifle in his mouth, and then it throws it away. And here's where we actually get probably one of the coolest moments from the character. Charlie ends up saving them by killing the Triceratops by stabbing him with his meat cleaver. Now, this movie isn't as violent as the original, and it might just be literally because of time constraint that they didn't have time to do all like the blood effects and that. However, if you look really closely while the scene fades to black, you can actually see the Triceratops bleeding from its head. It's one of those like blink and you miss it things. So they did actually animate it, but I guess they thought, oh, it doesn't look too good, so they had to basically cut it with the fade to black or whatever.
Indeed. First up, it's a Styracosaurus, and second, that I definitely glossed over that when I was watching the movie.
Yeah.
I just assumed that it either backed off or just decided to go somewhere else.
Yeah. But no, it's actually, I believe, killed in that moment. And Matthew, what are you going to say?
So, Denim is my favorite character in this because he's got the best jokes in this movie. Charlie's my second favorite because he's got the second best jokes and lines, and he's just a badass in this film.
Yep.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was getting at earlier with basically the directors basically realizing that Charlie didn't really do anything in the first one. They decided, okay, we're going to have this stereotype, and we're going to make them the most badass stereotype you've seen, which, again, for 33, is way more progressive than movies that would be made like 20, 30 years later in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. I stab you with cleaver now.
Exactly. But we cut to Denim and Hilda coming across fruit and the temple entrance before a giant bear arrives and attempts to tackle them, which is interesting because, as far as what we've seen, all of the Skull Island animals have mostly been prehistoric in some way, but here it's just like a giant black bear, basically.
Yeah, this is a giant, big old bear on the island because bear.
Yep. Denim shoots at it, but this does nothing to the... It basically doesn't phase it at all. Little Kong hears Hilda screaming and comes to help them, and Little Kong gets into another fight with a giant bear in a sequence that looks really, really good. Like, it's almost like a miniaturized version of the T-Rex fight from the first movie because it feels so realistic. And that's what I do like, is that Little Kong here is kind of the underdog, because he actually is somewhat smaller than the bear.
Mm. Also, shoot her! Shoot her!
Nice.
Had to make it.
All good, all good. Math?
It's kind of interesting how they do the fight here because they're relatively the same size. They actually have it done like a wrestling match with grappling, headlocks, twisting and turning like that. I kept waiting to just hear in the background, "By God, Jim, that bear had a family."
Awesome. But yeah, I was just about to mention that with how I love the moment where Little Kong puts the bear in a headlock and just starts repeatedly punching its face over and over before throwing it to the ground. And it makes me wonder if Cooper and Shoshack actually choreographed this fight as well, because they famously choreographed the T-Rex fight from the first one by actually wrestling with each other and having O'Brien basically study their movements. So it makes me wonder if they did the same thing here, but there's not as much basically written about this movie as the original, so kind of hard to find out some facts about it, but still interesting stuff. I also like the fake out where Little Kong looks at one of his wounded fingers in confusion, and you think that, oh, he beat up the bear, but it instantly gets up and roars and starts tackling him again. Little Kong, of course, eventually defeats the bear by picking up a tree and basically bashing it in the head until it flees. He doesn't actually kill the bear, believe it or not. He does kill another animal that we'll get to in a minute, and that's the animal why we're doing this version, but I do also like how Denim basically cheers on Little Kong for his fighting skills, because when you really think about it, there's a moment here that's kind of a plot hole, and I don't mean to be a, oh, plot hole, ding, kind of guy, but basically Denim says, oh boy, look at Little Kong go, he sure can scrap like his old man, and it's like, you weren't there to see Kong fight the T-Rex.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe Ann told him about it, but he definitely wasn't there to actually see what it was like.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but just a little thing I noticed. But what happens next is basically Denim doesn't want to help Little Kong at first, but Hilda convinces him otherwise as they approach him, because she notices that he's hurt and that his finger's bleeding. Hilda basically rips off part of her dress to give to Denim and tells him to talk quietly when dealing with animals, which I do like how that came into play with the monkeys, you know? It actually did have kind of a purpose.
Monkey.
Yep, exactly. I do also like how Little Kong basically is hooting in curiosity as he's just staring at his bleeding finger. Of course, Denim tries to put the bandage on him, but Little Kong roars. After a while, Denim basically tries again, while apologizing for what he did with King Kong, remarking, if I left him alone, we all would have been probably better off. And we probably get the only actual scale model of the movie, like, compared to the original, which had, like, the giant Kong head and things like that. This only had the giant Kong hand, but it still looks really good. You know, I really wonder if it was actually meant for the original movie, but they repurposed it here. Because they obviously probably had the props still lying around in that.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yep. What happens is Little Kong stares at his bandaged finger in confusion before he hoots yet again. Hilda mentions that she wants a coconut from a nearby tree and Denim is unable to get one. Little Kong walks up and shakes the tree, causing the coconuts to land on top of them. Good thing he didn't shoot them or it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. And then there's Chunky. He's dead.
Oh, go ahead, Shark.
That man got hit in the head by a coconut.
They got hit in the
coconut sound.
they got hit in the head with 2 coconuts.
Oh my
I had
god.
to do it. I had to do it. Denim berates Little Kong for this as the gorilla basically walks away. We cut to night in the jungle as Hilda falls asleep next to Denim before apologizing and realizing that she was the one meant to keep watch. Denim mentions that it's no use to signal the others at the time as Hilda lies down. He mentions that Hilda has been really tough and that he's glad to have her. We get a really cute sequence as the pair goes to sleep because we get a really great shot of Little Kong looking at them from behind the cave and just looking in curiosity at them. And again, for someone who probably has maybe 15 minutes of screen time compared to Kong's like 45, they really gave Little Kong a lot of character.
Indeed, yeah.
Like they gave him such an innate sense of curiosity, and it really works out so well. But we cut to the other part of the jungle where Englehorn retrieves his rifle from the dinosaur, only to find it broken in half. The 3 decide to go to look for Denim and Hilda before we cut to Hilda waking up Denim. Denim fires off a shot to see if the others see it, but he only manages to wake up Little Kong and causes him to roar. The 2 of them basically head up back the cliff wall with Little Kong following them again out of curiosity for everything. They see the rock wall and they can't break it down before Little Kong just easily smashes it. They go into the temple, which looks more Aztec in design, so to reiterate, this is an Aztec temple on an island in the basically in the Indian Ocean. So let's see how that makes sense.
I'm sure it's somewhat off the coast of Peru a little bit.
Could be. But basically they go into the temple as Little Kong follows them before they find the riches of the island, which appear to be a giant set of diamonds in like a gold sort of medallion thing around it, and it's a pretty good prop. I'm not gonna lie, it looks really good. Denim tries to get it, but he can't reach, causing Little Kong to basically get it and bring it down for them. Denim excitedly says that they're all rich now, and I do like how we get a little bit development from him as, again, he's letting greed get the better of him, but now he realizes that, oh wait, we have no way of possibly getting off the island. We then get a scene of Little Kong picking up the rifle that Denim left and begins playing with it despite Denim's warnings. He accidentally shoots himself, but thankfully he doesn't hurt himself, as he then basically rips the rifle apart to see how it works, as Denim calls him a big rummy. Not dummy, rummy, which, okay, maybe that was old-time slang or something.
Okay, then.
Yep. But now we get to the moment where what we're waiting for on this, because we see a giant dragon enter the temple and roars as Kong fights with it. And to be perfectly clear, this is not a dinosaur. The actual script for the movie calls this a dragon. So Skull Island had dinosaurs and dragons on it, and obviously some of them were females, so this version of Skull Island was the perfect one for the podcast. We then get another fight scene of basically Little Kong grappling with the beast, which, again, it feels a lot like the bear fight from earlier in that it feels realistic, like a wrestling match. And, again, how Little Kong defeats it, he knocks it to the ground and repeatedly punches it to the head. There is a nice callback to the original that I definitely think O'Brien put in as a little wink and nod, because Little Kong starts playing with its jaw a little bit, like how Kong did with the T-Rex when he killed it.
Yep.
However, there's a really neat subversion here that actually fooled me the first time I saw this movie. You think, oh, the dragon's dead and that he's playing with its jaw. Nope. The dragon wakes up and tries to basically bite Little Kong, but he kills it, basically by repeatedly punching it in the head until it dies, which, okay, not as impressive as King Kong versus the T-Rex, but definitely a really cool fight nonetheless.
Accurate, to be sure.
Yep. Englehorn then calls out to Denim as they leave the temple, and we then cut to the moment why I said how Little Kong reminds me of another Kong a lot, because we cut to him making various little faces before shrugging to the camera, which really reminds me of Donkey Kong, just the way he has like his face is done with his facial expression and that. And okay, you could say, oh, he's just a gorilla, but no, there's something about that, especially like the little shrug take he does, that definitely reminded me of DK. Like if the original arcade Donkey Kong was King Kong, I would not be surprised to learn that basically the Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong Country onwards is based off of somewhat of Little Kong.
Yeah, that's certainly something. Specifically Smash Bros. For all those of you wondering at home, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see the Smash influence too, especially again with the little shrugging the little Uru face he does. Oh, go ahead, Meth.
Yeah, if you didn't know we were in a comedy before, Little Kong having that face from being hit in the head, and then the just shrugging going,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
really
but it's
sells
actually
it.
a funny moment. And go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, speaking of the whole Donkey Kong thing, you know what really certainly helps me think that the sounds Little Kong makes, the ooh 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 ooh. In the first Donkey Kong Country trilogy, Donkey Kong sounds like that. He makes those noises as well.
Yeah, so that definitely makes it interesting, and it makes you wonder if like a Rare based that version of Donkey Kong on Little Kong, like they saw, okay, and lest we forget, Donkey Kong is the son of Cranky Kong, who's the original King Kong, like how Little Kong is the son of the original King Kong. So it all fits together.
Everything is connected.
If only we got to see King Kong as Cranky Kong, we got to see them with the crystal coconut. And we
Yeah, bring it on.
And we never got to see Little Kong driving around in a fancy car. For shame.
No.
Nice.
For shame. But what happens is Denim and Hilda meet up with the others as Hellstrom asks where his gun is. Denim tries to tell Hellstrom about the treasure, but it turns out that Hellstrom was lying. There apparently wasn't any treasure, and he did it just to get out of Dakang fast and easy. But, of course, it turns out that Little Kong comes out of the temple, and we get a scene where Hellstrom lets out a scream that I think was meant to be funny because just the way it sounds is legitimately kind of hilarious. It's kind of hard for me to replicate. It's kind of like a kind of scream as he just instantly runs away from Little Kong, who, as we've established, is way more docile than King Kong was.
Absolutely.
But Hellstrom runs to the boat to try and get away as Denim says that he'll stay back to get the rest of the treasure while the others leave. Hellstrom makes it to the lifeboat, only for a plesiosaur to stick its head out of the water and cause him to fall in. I think this model is from the first one, but I can't really confirm that. We then get another moment. It very well could be. At least the faraway model. I think the head might be a little different, but I gotta kind of look and analyze it. But regardless, we get another kind of violent moment as Hellstrom is eaten by the plesiosaur, but it's not just like it eats him. It basically gets his body in its mouth and it shakes it around in a sequence that really feels more like the original when the plesiosaur was eating the men that fell off the boat.
Yep. In case you forgot, this Nessie on Skull Island does not mess around.
Exactly. Math, go ahead.
Just to reaffirm to everyone, this was just before the Hays Code hit.
Yep.
As I said in last week's episode, like you could not even do this a couple of years later. Like I think probably the last horror movie to get out before like the Hays Code really took over was Bride of Frankenstein, which has some really gruesome stuff in it too. But getting back to this, we then see what happens just as Hilda and Charlie and Englehorn make it to the lifeboat. An earthquake breaks out on Skull Island. A group of natives all fall off a cliff as it turns out Skull Island is being completely destroyed by the earthquake, which, again, for a movie that had 10 months production time, which I gotta figure even in the 30s was nothing, this looks really good how the island basically breaks apart and collapses slowly into the sea. It, again, really, really looks good, and this is also a moment that feels a bit like Cooper and Shoshack basically saying, okay, we're going to give you a second King Kong, but you're not getting a third one, even though they would with Mighty Joe Young, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this definitely feels like a moment where they basically told RKO that, okay, we'll give you a second King Kong, but we're going to destroy Skull Island. There's going to be no more Kongs and no more sequels, which movies did a lot of back then, like, okay, no more sequel. Famously, another movie about monkeys, Planet of the Apes, tried in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where, spoiler warning for a 50-year-old movie, the Earth blows up at the end. But that's not the end of the franchise, because they did Escape from Planet of the Apes, where Cornelius and Zira escape in a time machine, and then the whole timeline restarts from there. And, God, I wish we could do the Planet of the Apes movies. They are fun. There are so many fun moments in those movies.
I'll bet.
Yep. But anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, it's when I saw that the giant storm was sinking the entire island, all I could think was the directors basically going to the studio producers and going, make a sequel out of that, bitches.
It would not surprise me if Cooper and Shostak intentionally did that. But what happens is Little Kong helps save them by getting them out of the temple as the two climb to the top of Skull Mountain. I do like the shot of Little Kong basically roaring against the elements, basically that despite being literally a giant like his father, nothing could stop nature in another really good sequence. And what happens is Little Kong then sacrifices himself to save Denim, lifting him into the lifeboat as he sinks below the water, which also reminds me a little bit of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, where they blew up Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna, which, again, at least here, it's thematically important and it is really tear-jerky, whereas in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, it was like, screw you, there's no more Jurassic Park in our Jurassic Park movies. Have fun. Go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be good.
Exactly. It was either that or Superman.
Yeah.
But
Or
we'll talk
at
about something like that later. Go ahead, Angron.
Or at least that one scene from Terminator 2 where he's like getting loaded in lava and he does the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, that does kind of tie into this because we get a shot of Little Kong's hand basically slowly sinking into the water as it basically waves back and forth as it basically sinks below the water. And it's such a tragic one because, again, despite everything, Skull Island is completely destroyed. All of the dinosaurs, all the creatures, and even the natives, they're all dead. They're all gone. Nature is remorseless. I think if this movie had a message like how the original was how the primitive cannot survive in the modern world, I feel like the message of Son of Kong was how nature can attack at any time. I definitely kind of probably got that with it. But what happens is we then cut to the group basically adrift at sea as Denim stares at the diamonds he took from the island. Just as all seems to be lost, Englehorn spots a ship as it turns out they're all rescued by a big ocean liner. Sad, unfortunately, it was not the Titanic. We cut to the ship as Denim and Hilda basically look out into the sea as Denim ponders how Little Kong saved his life and basically sacrificed his own. Hilda says that they might not be seeing each other as Denim vows to split it 4 ways between them all, which means, yes, Charlie actually gets a cut of the treasure, which, again, for 33, pretty progressive.
Indeed, yeah.
Hilda suggests splitting it 3 ways, with one of them to us. And basically the movie ends with the two of them embracing each other, and that's basically the end of Son of Kong and the original Kong timeline. Son of Kong, reviews of it basically were mixed. I think a lot of critics didn't know what to think of it because it came out so soon after the last one, but it actually made a little bit of a profit. It was nowhere near as huge as King Kong because, again, I don't know audiences knew what to expect from a sequel, but it did actually make its budget back, and it did pretty decently well at the box office. Kong, of course, would have a much larger legacy with 2 remakes, the 76 one, which we are not going to talk about, nor King Kong Lives, because, number one, the 76 remake does not have any dinosaurs, just a really, really big snake in it. And number 2, King Kong Lives is terrible. It is the worst King Kong movie by a wide margin.
I'll bet.
But Kong was particularly successful in one country that you're probably expecting us to mention earlier, Japan, where this movie basically was the grandfather of the entire kaiju genre. Some of the first 2 kaiju movies made in Japan were called King Kong Agains and King Kong and Edo, which were 2 unauthorized Kong sequels, both set in Japan. And sadly, they are both totally lost. So we can't see how the Japanese did King Kong. But, of course, without Kong, we wouldn't have had a Godzilla. Which, of course, brings us to the original King Kong vs. Godzilla from the 60s, which has 2 very different reactions from 2 people who worked on the original King Kong. The first one was from Merian Cooper, because I believe Shostak was dead by the time it was made. Cooper absolutely despised the idea of Godzilla vs. King Kong. He actually tried to sue Toho to not get the movie made, claiming that he had complete ownership of King Kong as the character.
He did not have the right.
He did not, and he lost it. He later wrote in his memoirs that, and this is a direct quotation from him, I was indignant when some Japanese company made such a belittling thing to a creative mind called King Kong vs. Godzilla. They even stooped so low as to use a man in a gorilla suit for Kong, something which disgusts me greatly. So, yeah, he was not a fan of Godzilla vs. Kong, and
I'll bet.
yeah, he felt that. I just think the concept on its own probably disgusted him. Like, he probably, if he had his way, Kong would have been one and done with Son of Kong, and that would have been the last we would have seen him as a character.
I'll bet.
Should have
Yeah.
gotten a starfish in the gorilla suit.
I am in the gorilla suit. I was doing a good job.
Wait, if you're the gorilla suit, then I must be.
Yeah,
If
classic.
he's out there and I'm in here and I'm the sheriff.
Great. Matthew, you were saying?
So I'm not saying that this is a bad movie, but I am kind of on the side of the critics that gave it a mixed reception on its release, because I kind of understand where they're coming from. The best way that I've found to describe this is like going from Christopher Nolan's Batman to 9 months later, Adam West's Batman movie. Not that either of them are good or bad or better than the other, just that the tonal whiplash, especially within the same year, is
Definitely.
nuts. And that will make you feel a bit odd that they change genres entirely from one movie to the
Especially
other.
when you watch them like back to back like this, you know? It's even more noticeable. But just to get back to Godzilla vs. Kong for a second, the other reaction was from Willis O'Brien, who wanted to do the effects for Godzilla vs. Kong. But some reason, Toho turned him down. Apparently, there was also going to be a giant Frankensteinian monster that O'Brien also was going to make on it, but for some reason, Toho turned him down. We could have had a Willis O'Brien version of Godzilla. Can you imagine how awesome that would have been to see a giant stop motion version of him? It probably would have taken some getting used to, rather compared to the tokusatsu way of making it, but come on. When the guy who literally animated the original King Kong, who's the reason you have a character to begin with, wants to work on the movie, you let him work on the movie. But yeah, I definitely agree with you, Math. I feel that while Son of Kong is not as good as the original by a long shot, it has a lot of fun sequences, especially with like the last, basically everything when they get to Skull Island is worth watching, because again, that's what people are there for. Like, all the human drama is kind of hit or miss, but yeah, I definitely can see that. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Speaking of which.
You're saying for some unknown reason Toho didn't want the guy? I'll give you the reason. Oh, we have to pay this guy? No, that ain't
True.
gonna happen. We're Toho.
Exactly. And King Kong vs. Godzilla isn't bad, but if I have to have one criticism of it, and this has always been my feeling of it, I'm sorry. I think King Kong looks really bad in it. I'm sorry. He just looks so wrong. Like, Godzilla in that, he looks great, you know, because again, they had time for that, but their version of Kong just looks... He looks too goofy. He looks like ridiculous. And I'm not knocking Toho, because again, great suit makers and that, but it just doesn't work with him. And I think it's because we have this image of King Kong from like the original King Kong, or like 76 King Kong, or like 05 King Kong. And to have him just as a man in a gorilla suit is really... It's not bad, but it's definitely... It takes a lot of getting used to in a way.
Indeed.
But we're going to get to the question of the week now, which is, what are your favorite divisive sequels, or rather, sequels that were not really widely regarded as being good, except, of course, for you? Now, I'll go first, and mine are probably two sequels, actually, that I like. Not as good as the original, but they definitely have really good moments in it. And I feel like they get a lot of bad rap, and I can definitely see why. As basically Matt said about Batman, I'm basically have to agree with him, because my favorite divisive sequels are going to be Batman Forever and, oddly enough, Batman and Robin. I feel like, yes, compared to Batman 89 and Batman Returns, are they as good? No, they are nowhere in the near stratosphere as good. But if you take them as like something of the same continuity, but a more Adam West style of Batman, in the same continuity, I think they're a lot of fun. I think that they are really, really good. I mean, Jim Carrey as the Riddler does such a great job, and I thought Chris O'Donnell actually made for a really good Robin. I would have not minded if we actually got to see him as Nightwing sometime, because I think he had it in him to really kind of do that. And of course, Batman and Robin, everybody ragged on in the internet, and they still do for a while, but I don't know. I think if you're looking under the right mindset, if you don't look at it as like, yes, it's a sequel to Batman 89, but you have to think of it as a sequel in a different genre. Like, basically the best way I can describe it is, imagine Batman 89 is like From Russia with Love, and Batman and Robin is A View to a Kill. It's the same like genre of movie, it's the same franchise, but it's two different tones. And I think that you can have one tone, you can have your From Russia with Love, but you can also have your lighter-hearted thing, like your Moonrakers. And I think Batman and Robin does that great because, I'm sorry, even if you have to rag on Batman and Robin, you can tell Arnold Schwarzenegger is having a blast. He is loving every single second of that movie.
Yeah, hot take. I really enjoyed the Schwarzenegger freeze.
He's great. He is so funny, and he's intentionally funny. And for a guy who, I feel Arnold gets a lot of flack that he can do comedy really well, like in True Lies and even Jingle All the Way. He has a lot of funny moments, and here he does as well. And he combines that with a little bit of pathos, like the part where he's making like the ice carving of his wife and he weeps. That is honestly some of the best acting from Arnold you will see. I got to give him credit. He actually, I feel Arnold got slept on a lot as an actor, and he actually did a pretty good job there. So
there's a reason we reference one of his lines on this channel. Fuck you, the dinosaurs! The Ice Age!
Yes, but like I say, that's a line that definitely was meant to be silly, and the whole movie as a whole, I feel like that. Oh, let's see what I say. Go ahead, Math.
Well, I agree with your points. I have to because it's mandatory. Do you know what killed the Batman franchise?
Oh my god.
Age.
Yeah. And
there
Shark, you
is
were
a
saying?
reason he's the most quotable character in the movie.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they were making a Batman 5 that would have had apparently the Scarecrow in it, and he was going to be played, I believe, by none other, and this is true, he was going to be played by none other than Coolio, who appears in Batman and Robin. He was going to show up in the unreleased fifth Batman movie called Batman Triumphant as the Scarecrow, which would have been really, really fascinating, and he might have been able to pull it off. I'm not going to lie. Maybe he could have pulled it off. Wouldn't have been out of place, but yeah, that's definitely going to be my pick for my two favorite sequels that a lot of people don't like, that are considered divisive, but that's definitely my favorite ones. Or ones that, let's just say, are very enjoyable to just sit back and rewatch and have a good time with this. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So, Angron, what would your pick be?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this before, but I do honestly prefer Shrek the Third over Shrek Forever After. Shrek Forever After was fun. It had a lot of good moments, admittedly more so than Shrek the Third, but I still think it's a little better than Shrek Forever After. The comedy was a little better. Honestly, the dragon moments were pretty amazing. Honestly, it had a lot more. It had a lot more funny moments than most of the other ones. Not as much as Shrek 2, I will say that, but I very much will stand by that film as being a funny one. Even my mom really likes that one to this day. It's very funny.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I think I'm gonna pick that one.
I definitely can see why, because, again, I'm kind of with you in that I feel like Shrek the Third is, again, a little underwhelming, but I really feel like there's no real bad Shrek movie in a way. That even, the original Puss in Boots, a lot of people rag on, but I feel like that has a lot of good moments in it. It's not as good as, of course, the sequel, because what is, but like I say, I really can't wait to see Shrek 5 and the Donkey movie, because both of those are in production, and of course, we got a lot of dragon moments, so that'll be fun too.
Yes.
Yep, be a lot of fun to see.
I'm definitely excited for the Donkey movie.
Same. So let's see, Matt, what would your favorite divisive sequel be?
As the animation guy, I'm pretty sure you all are wondering which straight to DVD Disney
Oh,
movie
dear.
am I going to be
go ahead.
talking about. I'm going to pull out a little bit of a curveball. It is straight to DVD Disney movie, but it's not one of the regular ones.
go
that I
ahead.
Even
brought up.
Bambi too? Dang.
An extremely
Oh.
goofy
Oh
movie.
yes, that is a good one.
Oh.
Extremely goofy movie. Yes.
I am that one weird guy that I actually like the sequel better
Oh,
than
really?
the original.
Same.
Not that the original Goofy movie was bad, just that I don't know. I never really quite connected with it as much as other people did, but I did with Extremely Goofy
That's
movie.
nice.
I enjoyed the characters more. I enjoyed the setting more. I thought that Max was a better character in this than the original movie. I thought it was funnier. Really liked just how over the top and zany it was. I think that that's the thing that really worked with me better in this than the original, because they were trying to tell a bit more of a serious movie as much as you can with Goofy. They held back on some of the extreme comedy, but with Extremely Goofy movie, they just went full ham. You can see that perfectly with Bradley Uppercrust the Third. The animators must have had a field day with that guy. Just the facial expressions alone are always
bet.
hilarious.
Exactly.
Also,
what?
they've been laughing since I can remember, but they're not gonna
Nice.
laugh anymore. I had to bring that up.
And then, of course, this movie also gave us
Yep.
Sylvia Marple. Thank you, movie.
Yeah.
We
Yep,
appreciate
we're so
it.
glad that they did. But yeah, I was about to actually agree with you there because I feel that it's a lot more true to, shall we say, the original Goofy shorts than the original Goofy movie was. Again, not discounting the original Goofy movie at all, which is fantastic, but this feels like an actual Goofy movie that the Disney animators of like the 50s probably would have made if they basically were told to make a movie all about Goofy and his antics and that. It feels more in line with it.
I'll bet.
Yep. So that's a really good one. And let's see, Shark, what would yours be for your favorite divisive sequel?
Well, it's an interesting case because it's gonna be a unique take on a certain series, and yeah, let's just say that this one was really divisive because it changed the direction of the franchise for a while because it had a lot of new stuff. It was a very different, and like I said, it changed the direction of the franchise for a long while. And I'm talking about Mario Party 9.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting.
then.
Wow.
Yeah, the one with the car. Which was,
That's interesting.
yeah. And here's the thing. Obviously, the thing that got the most controversy was the fact that they changed how the board game works. Because, what do you mean I don't go on my own? What do you mean on a car and blah, blah, blah? Oh, where's the classic Mario Party? And it's like, I mean, it's fun. At the end of the day, it's a fun game. It's a fun mechanic. And I will say a few things like, hey, when this game came out, people didn't like Mario Party 8, which was still like the classic Mario Parties because. And I remember a lot of people say that, the Mario Party has been doing the same thing over and over for 8 entries. But the second Mario Party 9 tries something different, you suddenly like Mario Party 8, huh? That's something
Shoes on the other foot now, ain't it?
Exactly.
That's something I really noticed that. The moment people didn't like Mario Party 8, but the second 9 was released, Mario Party 8 is a classic. Well, also remember that Mario Party isn't just about the board games, it's about the mini games, it's about the characters, the visuals, and I gotta say this, Mario Party 9 might be, not counting the Switch games because the way the graphics are nowadays, but Mario Party 9 might be the most beautiful Mario Party until Switch because the colors are vibrant, the levels are great, the setting of the mini games are so creative, the music's amazing, so honestly, Mario Party 9 is in my top 3 Mario Party games. I am not kidding. It's just, I love that game so much, but because it was the one that took the franchise into a more experimental type of gaming, it's a really controversial one, so that is my answer.
Yep. I definitely have to agree with you there because as someone who is a big fan of Mario Party Advance which also tried to take the game in a new direction, and also had the playable characters in the car, believe it or not. They didn't go around the board and do traditional Mario Party. I definitely have to agree with you there in that it feels like fans of Mario Party, as much as, it's great in that, a lot of them don't want anything new or original, and it's definitely seems with the reaction of it, because it's a shame, because they do have great mini games. They really, really do. And they have, great moments, and again, it looks fantastic, but everyone looks that over because, oh, you're in a car now, boo! And everyone ragged on it on YouTube and everywhere else, and it's a shame. It's an absolute shame because, again, it's a game that I believe definitely deserves a lot more love, just the same with Mario Party Advance definitely does as well. So now it is So now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness scale. We're going to rank the dinosaur and the dragon from this movie. Now, I'll go first, and because this movie, again, they don't even show up until the last 20 minutes of the movie is already a bad sign, but I give O'Brien credit. He did the best with the limitations he had. That, okay, maybe they're not as expressive, maybe they're not as, important to film history as the original, but considering that, again, he had probably 10 months and half the budget to make it on. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10, which is probably a little more generous than they deserve, but taking into consideration that it's still Willis O'Brien animation, and any amount of Willis O'Brien is better than zero Willis O'Brien, and the fact that, again, the fight with the dragon, especially being so realistic, not, again, anything comparable to the Kong versus T-Rex fight, but still being so good in its own right, I'm probably going to have to give him a 7 out of 10, which, again, definitely not as high as the original, where last week I gave him a perfect score, but what can you do? Angron, what would you give them?
I am probably going to have to say, that's a tough one. I'm probably also going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's definitely not bad. The stop motion definitely could have been a little better, and the design, it looks like a blind Komodo dragon, I'm not going to lie. But I will say this, it definitely served its purpose, and it was definitely an interesting struggle for, Kilo and the other humans. So, I'm definitely going to have to give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, good. Let's see. Matt, what would you give them?
Well, the biggest thing this has going against it is that it is a sequel to King Kong, and the stop motion of that was absolutely amazing. Not to say that the stop motion of this is bad, just it is a bit of a downgrade, unfortunately. And what Kong had going for it was that it was so revolutionary, so ahead of its time. That's why that got the 10 of its day. And this one is going to obviously be a lower score because as much as you try to rate it on its own, you can't help but go, this is still worse than the original Kong. And that was just a few months ago. That said, it's still really impressive for its day. Willis O'Brien, as I said before, is a genius. And he would not be he would not be equaled until Harryhausen. So I'm going to agree with you guys and go with a 7
I'll bet,
for these
yeah.
creatures,
Nice.
based purely on just how good he is at what he does.
He does it, and he does it well. So let's see. Shark, what would you give them?
Well, as you just said, the dragon here, which is a dragon, thankfully, did their purpose well, and they look fine. Honestly, there's not much to talk. They show up, fight Kong, and die. But the fight was still good looking for the time, and I guess I'll give them a 7 as well.
Wow, perfect train this week. That is actually rarer than them getting 10 out of 10s. Believe it or not.
Jeez.
So that's going to be it for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have any questions, or if you want to tell us how much you would have loved to see a Willis O'Brien version of Godzilla, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Be sure to visit us on Blue Sky at Blue Sky Fiery Discourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel. Subscribe to the playlist. Hit the bell icon. Any and all comments are appreciated. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is looking to get into a group home in the UK. A link for that in the description will be there for GoFundMe. Any and all help is appreciated. Next week, we'll be talking about something a little bit more recent than King Kong or his son, as we're going to be talking about the 1985 Dungeons & Dragons episode, Cave of the Fairy Dragons. This is actually the second episode of the show we're talking about after the Tiamat one. Will this one be as good as the original? Only time will tell.
I'll bet.
Yep. Hopefully that'll be a good time. But that'll be it for this week. And until then, thank you all so much for watching. And take care.
Later.
Adios.
And
See you all.
Happy New
Peace out.
Year.
Yep. Happy 225. Here's to many great episodes. See you next week for Dungeons and Dragons Cave of the Fairy Dragons.